Hey, everybody. Hopefully, everybody can hear me okay. If you're out there, give me a little thumbs up. Let's see. For some reason, I am not hearing my music today. Oh, I guess it would help if I chose some music today. Let's see. Let's do a little bit of rock. Here you go. We're going to give it just a couple minutes, let some people join. Jim, you said you're out there. Shoot me a little message. There you go. We're going to give it just a couple minutes, let some people join. So I have such a great guest for y'all today. I'm really excited. Jason, welcome. Thank you. Glad you're here and able to make it. Hopefully your drive is going good. And it looks like Jim is going to be here soon. It's asking for him to sign in. Not sure what that's about. Interesting though. We'll see how that turns out. And I know we've got a couple more people that are coming out tonight to watch the show. And hopefully everybody had a great Christmas. I know I did. I was able to have all of my kids at home this year. So I was super excited about that. It's something that you just can't beat, especially as a military mom. You never know where one is going to be or the other one. And I have two Marines. So to have them and their family home for Christmas was so exciting. I can't even begin to tell you. So we're going to go ahead and start getting our guest introduced. And I am super excited about that. I do want to start by saying that my guest tonight is a Chief Master Sergeant in the Air Force, and his name is Jonathan Shores Jr. So please welcome in the chats for me, Mr. Shores or Jonathan. So hang on, let's get him on board here. Hi.
Hello there.
Can you hear me okay?
I got you loud and clear. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Good.
How was your Christmas?
Oh, not long enough. Not ready to go back to work. But I'm soaking the last minutes of off time that I can get.
Right, absolutely. I gave up 2 vacation days to have 11 straight days off. So it was so worth it. Yeah.
What a treat. You're not going to be ready to go back to work.
I know, but it was a much needed break. Crazily enough, I mean, it's been a while, I think really a long while. So since we had a vacation. So to me, it's even though I didn't go anywhere, we did a lot of little things. And so that was really nice.
Awesome.
Let's see. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of start. I'm sure I've got some others that are going to be popping up here before too long, but in the meantime, this will be recorded for anybody who's not able to come in and watch tonight. So let's start the conversation by, having you talk a little bit maybe about your childhood, kind of grown up, and what was that like for you? Was it kind of an average childhood, above average, below average?
Yeah, I would say it was average childhood. I had a mom who was a teacher, and my dad was an insurance guy, helped with retirement planning, stuff like that, with 4 teachers specifically. Kind of grew up a middle-class family. My parents put themselves through college, and they kind of told us all along that if we wanted to go to college, it was going to be our responsibility. That in a lot of ways, they kind of learned their work ethic and all that kind of good stuff by paying their way through college. So, I'd say 2 brothers, another brother, middle brother. I'm the oldest. Middle brother, always all of us super competitive. My middle brother, also military. and he and I, long story short, well, I feel sure we'll have time to get into that later, but he was in the he and I went to Air Force basic training together, and then he got dumber and went into the Army. And then my younger brother, he was kind of the hellion of the family, because he was the baby of the family, so he got away with a little bit more. But yeah, I would say overall very much average, but amazing upbringing. Had very loving, supporting parents.
That's awesome. That's really, it's always nice to hear the differences in, um, because sometimes we get in our heads that people join the military because their childhood was really rough, or they needed a place to belong, et cetera, et cetera. So to hear the differences, there's no set type of an individual or type of childhood that necessarily leads you in that direction, in that field. So always good to have that. So what was your education like then? Was there anything in particular that you really excelled in school, like your middle school, high school days?
Yeah, anything that wasn't academic, primarily
Okay.
athletics. I mean, I was very much an average student. I did what I needed to do to get by, right? I did the absolute, uh, literally the bare minimum. And so, yeah, barely got into college type situation because I didn't take it seriously. But it's amazing, like once you start paying for your own school, you start taking a little bit more seriously. So did fine in college, but yeah, high school was it was just, what sport is next, right? So I played three times, three different sports. So it was always like a fall and spring and a late spring type events. And so it was just constantly go, 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 and where is next. So I had a very disciplined dad. He was pretty tough on us. And at the time, like every kid, you think, oh, I've got it so bad. My dad's so strict and all that kind of stuff. And you look back, 30, 40 years later, and you realize, golly, he really did instill a lot of discipline in me, and things that I'm very, very grateful for.
Right. And so what were your favorite sports? What sports did you prefer?
Yeah, basketball was my number one. I loved basketball. Had an opportunity to play in high school. Our senior year high school team won the state championship, and
Oh,
had
wow.
so had some opportunities to go on and play after that, in the college level. And but yeah, it was an amazing opportunity. Um, and like I said, had I not had that, I probably wouldn't have gotten in to college, to be honest. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And it does make a difference. I know, I was kind of that way, you know, college or high school, just school in general, it was not my thing. And I mean, I was so scared that I did not graduate. The day before we had a final in history, and I really was not doing well. And they said, well, I'm going to grade these basically through the night. And if you don't pass it, you're not graduating. And we will let you know Thursday morning, which was the day of graduation. And so I said, okay, didn't hear anything, not a word. So, I mean, I remember I'm sitting there, I'm ironing my gown, getting everything ready,
yeah.
get all the way to the event center. My graduating class was a little over 500. And what they did, so because it was an event center, they had at the center, way up, they had the great big, I don't know what you call it, like not quite a billboard, but so you go in, everybody went into this room and they had like, I don't know, 4 or 5 10-foot tables with these little tiny name placards and a number. So it had your name and then a little number. And then when you would get up to the stage, behind the stage beforehand, you would hand them the little placard.
Yeah.
They would type in the number. And so then when your name was called, then they type that in and it show up in lights in this
Oh
arena.
wow.
Yeah, it was really neat,
Cool.
but I couldn't find my placard. And I mean, I went through it 3 times. I started just almost hyperventilating. I'm panicking. They forgot to call me. I didn't graduate. And all of a sudden, so I had one of my friends had come over because she just saw the panic and fear in my eyes. And she looked, well, it was at the very bottom corner, right hand corner of one of the tables. And somehow I just kept skipping right over the top of it because in my head, I knew I wasn't going to graduate. That's how bad my grades were. So, then I was really fortunate enough to have a company that I worked for, Freightliner Corporation.
Yeah.
And so it's a worldwide corporation. And I worked for them in Nevada. And they actually would pay for my college education. But the way that they had it set up was kind of tiered. So they would pay for it up front, your books, your tuition. But if you got an A, everything was still paid for, no issue. If you got, a B, they would take 10% of that back, and so on and so forth. And if you ended up with like a maybe it was like a C or below, basically you end up paying for it yourself. So and they would just recoup it back out of your paycheck. So
Wow.
but it was really great though, because it did give me that incentive, because I didn't want to be paying for this out of my pocket as
Mhm.
it was, I wasn't all that studious. I mean, I did great in college, and unfortunately, um, did not get my degree because I got promotional transferred to Memphis.
Okay.
So, and I actually was management at that point. So I was on call 24/7, and I was working the night shift and on average 16 hours a day. So it was like, by the time I come home, I was like, I know, I just couldn't do it. So I understand how that goes when it comes to that. The studious part is,
Yeah.
it's not been so much that we're not studious. It's just that it's just not something that really interests us at
Yeah.
that moment in time.
I've always said I get really excited about the things I want to learn about. It's the things that are just part of the necessary curriculum, your Englishes, your sciences, your maths, things I don't want to take,
Right.
that I just don't give the effort to. But if it's things I enjoy, oh, I'm
You're
all in.
you're all over.
I told my dad when I graduated high school, and all of my friends are graduating cum laude and magna cum laude and summa cum laude. I said, Dad, I'm sorry I didn't graduate, one of those cum laudes. And he said, oh, you did? And I said, I did. He said, yeah, you graduated. Oh, thank the Lord. So it's like, hey, I'll take the win for you, Dad. So
Oh, that's wonderful. Right. You got to take those wins where you can,
yeah,
because
that's right.
sometimes they can be few and far between. Oh, that's funny. So, okay. So, um, you've made it through high school.
Yep.
You went into college,
Yep. Yep.
and then you decided to join the military.
Yeah. Kind of
Uh,
a weird track. So I'd been in 2 years, lost a scholarship, like I talked about before, had
mhm.
gotten injured, hurt, and I was like, how in the world am I going to pay for school? Right. So I was one of those that was, hey, I'm just going to join long enough to pay for school. And then I'm going to be done. And, almost 24, 25 years later, here we are.
Mhm.
Um, but it was one of those, like, I got to pay for school. I had a buddy of mine who was in the Army Reserves, and his dad was in the Air Force. So they were, you know, obviously, there's the friendly competition amongst
A little
branches.
ribbing. Yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
So I was trying to figure out, all right, which branch do I want to go into? I kind of want to be hardcore. I want to do this cool thing, and so I went out with my buddy Brad for their drill one weekend, and their MREs in the tents, and I'm like, yeah, this is awesome. And his dad, they lived across the street from us, and his dad literally came to me and said, hey, before you make any stupid decisions, come see what the Air Force is all about. So I went out to his base and talked to the recruiters out there, and they were like, it was a September. I remember it vividly. So it was right at the end of the fiscal year, and they had steak and imitation lobster, and they put me up at the DoubleTree Hotel.
That's
And
not so bad.
no, so I went to the recruiter and I said, hey, I said, I don't understand the whole military thing. Like I'm thinking about the Army. What's the difference in pay between the Army and the Air Force? And he goes, there's no difference in pay. And I was like, well, if that's the way, where do I sign? So that was kind of how I decided to sign up. But coincidentally, I mentioned this earlier. My younger brother's a couple years younger than I am. Decided to go in. He was 17 going on 18, had to get our parents to sign for him to get in. Had graduated high school a little bit early, chasing a girl at the time. And then my best friend growing up as well was basically in the same boat, had always wanted to serve. And so all three of us went to basic training together at Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas, where all Air Force basic training's at. And we thought for sure we're going to get there and we're all going to get split up, right? So my best friend Brandon, he got split up from us, went to another flight, and then my brother is Joseph Shores and I'm Jonathan Shores. So they just thought it was a typo because it was Shores, J, and so they put us in the same flight. And in Air Force Basic, you don't get your name tapes until you kind of go through, everybody can get their laughs out of the way, your hell week, right? Your tough week, which is like right at the end of basic training. And so I wore the BCGs, the birth control glasses. My brother did not. So standing side by side, we looked like brothers, but nobody could tell who we were. And it wasn't until the last week we're getting ready to graduate, and the drill instructor comes up to us and he's like, Short, like looking at our name tag, Shores, and he's yelling at me. And then he goes to my brother, who's literally in the bed beside of me, and he goes, Shores, your rack looks like crap. And he goes, wait, Short, are you guys related? Take off your glasses. And he took off the glasses. He goes, you guys are related. And so we made it through basic training all the way together, which was a really cool experience. And then and a couple years later, like I said, he switched over to the Army. But then my best friend and I ended up getting stationed at the same base together in the same squadron and everything. So we got to hang out, and he did that for 10 years until he switched over. So he works for one of those 3-letter federal agencies now. And then my brother is a federal law enforcement officer now. And so it's kind of funny how we all did this just to pay for college. And it's been the one thing that has really been an awesome story to kind of see how everything has gone and transpired, and how our lives have been impacted by that bond that'll forever be there.
Yeah, exactly. And that actually is a great little segue, because one of my questions is, are you still in contact with those that you have gone through basic with or served with in general?
Very much served with, not now basic, outside of my brother, which obviously we still keep in contact.
Right, that would be awkward otherwise at Christmas.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And then my best friend Brandon, actually, we had dinner together last night. He came down, and so we had dinner together. But outside of that, from basic training, no, I keep up with no one. And really, even most of the schools that I went to, I haven't really kept people that I've been stationed with. Absolutely, you forge those lifelong friendships. And I think it was maybe Brian a couple weeks ago said, especially when you're deployed with somebody, you have a friendship that has stood one of the strongest tests that can be given to somebody. And so yeah, those folks I keep in contact with, and probably, I don't know, a dozen or so that I keep in contact with pretty frequently, but not. Some people I don't want to hear from, to be quite honest. Right?
Well, no, that actually makes perfect sense. And you're really not the first person that I've heard that from, not necessarily, through the show, but just in general. And again, it's one of those questions I ask because it just goes to show, the differences in people plus the similarities. Yeah. In our military veterans. And
but one of the things I love too is like when you find out someone is a vet or has served in some capacity, there's obviously the ribbing that happens based on branch, and right. I typically get the brunt of that. Although I've jokingly said, with Coast Guard and Space Force now, we're kind of in the middle of the pack. So I'm feeling good about where we're at right now.
Right? You're no longer like the low person on the totem pole when it
Yeah,
comes to like a newbie or something like that
exactly.
back in,
Yeah.
yeah,
We're
yeah, I
feeling
get
pretty
that.
good about it. But there's that just automatic respect that's given. So I do a lot of flying commercially, and I'll make a very long story short, but I was on a flight with a guy who had an Iraqi veteran hat on, and he and I talked about, we were in Iraq at the same time, two different bases, but Iraq at the same time as we were waiting to board our flight. And there was a passenger that came up on the flight, and he was basically being unruly, and we had to do an emergency landing. And this, it was like this guy and I were 2 rows back from each other, and we just kind of were like, all right, we'll take care of it. So we kind of looked at each other. We'll take care of it if we need to. But it's just that bond, that immediate bond that I love. I absolutely love that.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I, as a civilian, and going through my life, it's like very, for the most part, I'm kind of closed off. It's like I have a handful of people that I would trust with my life, and then there's those that I would consider a friend, but not necessarily that I would trust with my life. And then you've got the acquaintances and things like that. The people that yeah, them, you see them on the street every now and again, and so that bond that you talk about, it's forged in going through the same circumstances, in the case of most service members. That's, you guys have gone through very similar circumstances, be it a different branch of the military too. So to still have that bond as you get older with veterans in general.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So let's go back real quick. We're going to kind of jump into a couple of things. So to start, we have Jim has said, thank you for your service. And then we have Ron Wayne, and he says, thanks for your service, Jonathan.
Thanks, Ron.
Jim does have a question, and his question is, how many years were you in and where were you stationed throughout your military career?
Yeah. How long do we have?
We have as long, I will go wherever you want to go and for as long as you care to go. So
yeah, it's been an interesting story. So so I'm still in a reserve component now. Actually retiring in August of 24. I had to I know Chad, I think, is on here. Chad knows the story. So I had to apply for retirement 3 times, and the first 2 times it got denied, which was just a whole funny story. But so I've been to 48 different countries in my service, and so
wow.
How about I tell you my favorite place that I was stationed? That might be a good one.
Yes.
My favorite place was Botswana. Down
oh,
in
really?
I absolutely loved it there. It was the people. I absolutely love the people down there. Just very hospitable country and people. Crime was not terrible, but we were basically down there helping train their kind of it's called the Botswana Defense Forces. And the worst place I was ever stationed. I hope I don't offend anybody. I despise Japan. I did not like
really
Japan at all. No, just the summer there, like growing up in North Carolina, I thought I knew what humidity was, but humidity in Japan, I was in Yokota. That was just ungodly. Like in the desert in Botswana, it was just a drier heat. In Japan, it was just the humidity there in Guam. I didn't care for Guam too much. But yeah, those are probably my 2 least favorite, but I did love Botswana. I was in Germany a couple times, stationed in Germany at Simbach Air Base. which isn't even around anymore, and then at Ramstein as well. I was at Ramstein twice, and Simbach twice actually. But yeah, Germany's a great place too.
So did you like Ramstein?
I did. Yeah, I did. It's got everything you need in terms
And
of facilities.
yeah, and and I've heard we have a friend in Montana whose son is Air Force, and his first duty station was there at Ramstein, and he would do a lot of loading and unloading,
Yeah,
the planes, and he really loved it.
yeah.
And it was basically just until I think he came stateside once there was a threat of something happening there or close by, and it was like, okay, we're
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
yeah. But yeah, I remember he would just kind of talk a little bit about, show photos of things that, when he had time, he'd go look at and see,
Uh,
and it actually looked really pretty.
oh,
Yeah,
it's if I had to live in another country, Germany would be pretty high up the list. I mean, there's just yeah, it could be said for anywhere, but there's just so much to do in Germany. And I'm a history buff, like I love old history, and there's a lot of that in Germany as well. So
yeah,
yeah, and Guam. I know I mentioned Guam. Like for me, Guam was just from what I remember of Guam. When I had to dehydrate my liver for a little while after Guam. But from what I remember of Guam, it was nice. It was just I didn't it too was very humid. God, this really sounds like Air Force. It was just humid, sticky, muggy. Facilities were not fantastic, and the island was just dirty. It was just
you're gonna get a lot of ribbon from the Marines watching this,
and,
just so you know,
and,
because they get the stuff that's like, hand me downs,
yeah,
and yeah, so they're gonna be like, man, you don't even know the half of it.
that's a very fair. That's very fair. Uh,
Let's see what else do we have here. I had Jim says, let's see. How many? Oh, wait, we already did that one. How many and where? Oh, your favorite person. Chad says, you're always the low man.
I'll let Chad just think that for a minute.
Just wait. His turn's coming up.
That's
So
right.
you be
Payback.
sure to rib the heck out of him.
Done. Done.
And then Killian, of course, Chad with spicy roast. So yeah, so Killian's getting to know you all really well. He, as I said, he's actually going to hopefully be joining you next year in one of your trips.
Oh, awesome.
So
Yeah, I love
yeah,
that.
the hope is that he definitely does get to retire versus being declined. So we'll think good thoughts there in that regard.
Awesome. Yeah.
Let's see what else we got here. Of course, Jim was curious why the Air Force was considered bottom of the services, and he's heard it several times. And Killian explained because mainly you're the youngest branch, or were prior
Yeah.
to. Well, Coast Guard, has Coast Guard been around
Yeah.
longer? Really?
Long time.
I guess they have.
Yeah. And
I
I
guess
think
they
it's 1947 was when we kind of birthed out of the Army Air Corps, and that I think it's pretty well documented. Our basic training is not physically demanding at all. I mentioned earlier that my brother and I went through Air Force Basic, and then he had to go back through Army Basic. So one of the rare folks that's got experience in two branches, basic trainings, and he said, the Army basic training was just physical, right? It was just they're going to smoke you all the time, and the Air Force basic, and this is him, not me, but the Air Force basic is just a mental game, right? They're always trying to mess with you, trying to get in your head, try to find your weaknesses and break you down mentally from that perspective. But I mean, they would make us fold our shirts in perfect 6-inch squares and like use tweezers to make sure that all the ends were flat. It was just stupid stuff, but it was all about the attention to detail, right?
That's where I was going. Details matter.
Yeah. And when you're working on nuclear weapons or jets that one bolt not tight can cause the whole thing to explode. people that they want that attention to detail.
Right, exactly. So I read, now I don't know how true this is. We were talking about, Japan and Guam, and I actually read, I want to think it was today, that the Marine Corps is actually considering leaving Japan and actually moving it to Guam. So
Uh, Possible.
that'll be interesting. The only reason I put it was public, so I put it out there. Not anything, is
Yeah.
out there. I think there was it was an article. I don't even remember what it was on, but one of the news shows or something. So
Yeah.
um, welcome, Jova Q. Welcome, Tennessee Goddess. Christine White, everybody, if I've missed you, welcome. Thank y'all for being here. We've got 10 people with us in the chats. So happy to have everybody out here. I am here with Chief Master Sergeant Jonathan E. Shores Jr. That is a mouthful, by the way.
Yeah, just to be glad I didn't give you the middle name, but yeah.
Well, I have to say, prior to this show, for those of you watching and joining in the chats, Jonathan sent me his biography, and his jacket is massive. His biography, I kid you not, consists of well, 3 pages. Okay, 2.25 pages long. And it's very, very impressive. I don't mean, if I do, to sound like I'm taking anything away from it, but it's amazing what you have accomplished in your time. So you have been in the Air Force and the reserves. So you've been in the military for a cumulative time of how many years?
Yeah, 20. When I retire, it'll be just shy of 25 years. So it'll be
Okay.
yeah. So yeah, right now I've been in 24, and so I'm ready to go.
Because for me, when I read this, I'm not going to lie. You know, the first thing that popped into my mouth? An overachiever.
Oh, well, it's funny. I was slow. I was slow out of the gates. I actually spent a couple years up in D.C. I was part of the Air Force Honor Guard, which was awesome in Arlington. And then you kind of lose your specialty training, your MOS training, or what we call AFSC training. You lose that, and so I went back to the field after a couple of years there, and I kind of stumbled out of the gates for a little bit, and then I had a really good set of mentors. I mean, just an unbelievable set of mentors who kind of, what we call in the military, kind of raised you, from that young airman to the sergeant, the NCO Corps, and then the senior NCO Corps. And I was stuck at E5 level for almost 12 years. I mean, I was there for a long time and just didn't move. And it wasn't until they put their boot in my where that it really got me moving and got me focused on things. And I was doing some cool things on the outside, because at that point I'd switched the reserves and my primary career had kind of taken off. And they're like, hey, your 2 careers should be in parallel. And it wasn't until they, in terms of like trajectory, and it wasn't until they kind of kicked me really good. And then I got a really good civilian boss. I was working at a college, and the president of the college was a retired Navy captain.
Oh, wow.
And so he and I kind of had this, I don't know, just kind of understanding of how things worked. And the Navy and the Marine Corps especially are really big on the NCO Corps, especially the senior NCO Corps, and relying on those folks. And so he really kind of said, hey, you got to do what you got to do on the military side. And so he allowed me a lot of bandwidth. So even though a large part of my career has been on the reserve side, I've averaged, I was just doing the math the other day, since I've been on the reserve side, I've averaged 140 days a year of active duty.
Wow.
So when you think about that, just perspective, right? You think about, hey, if I'm working 5 days a week, for 50 weeks. That's 200 days that you're working throughout the year. So I've had my regular job and then the reserve part on top of it, which has just taken a lot of time and energy, especially the last couple of years. This last assignment has been been a doozy, but it's been good, and I wouldn't trade the experiences for anything.
which is wonderful. What without going too far, obviously, if I ask a question and it's not something that you can talk about, just let me know. But are there any kind of stories that you can think of, funny stories, while you were in with your initial uh, Air Force group, um,
Yeah.
that you can think of that would be enjoyable for our listeners and
Oh,
viewers?
let's see. The one that's sticking out in my head right now, when I was up in DC as part of the honor guard, this was pre September 11th, like right before we had the first KIA that came back. So we were burying most folks who had lived long lives, 80 years old, and you're passing the flag to the next of kin and stuff like that. And we were doing a funeral, and I was a pallbearer. And so we were walking the casket up, and we had one guy that slipped and fell in the front, and one of our guys. And so, you
Yikes.
casket doesn't hit, you keep going. And
Act
so
like nothing happened.
nope, like whatever, you're going now. And so we literally stepped on him on our way over, and then he kind of recovered and came back and was just drenched in mud when he came
Oh,
back.
I'm a horrible person. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
it was, but you do so many of those. I mean, you're doing tons and tons of those things, but and then
Uh,
coincidentally, because the big thing on the honor guard side is it's not about you, right? It's
right.
about the person that you're marrying. So because he slipped and fell, he actually ended up getting demoted because he slipped
Oh,
and fell. But
because
so
there's certain standards that they have for that. Absolutely. It's all about who you are there for and
yep,
not the other way around.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I feel bad for him. I do, because just I can only imagine the embarrassment that he must have felt at slipping. And yeah.
He's doing all right now. He recovered. He's one of the ones I keep in contact with, and he's made Chief 2. He's made E9, so his career is rebounded. He's fine.
That's good. That's
Yeah,
great. So
yeah.
yours, what is okay? So Chief Master Sergeant, what does the rank for that?
E9.
It is an
E9.
E9.
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
I had it actually. I had your biography sitting on my desk, and my middle son had come. He was home. He's home for till tomorrow actually, before he has to go back. And so he was kind of taking a look at my computer for me, and he's like, "Geez, Mom, yeah." And he thought Chief Master Sergeant actually just quickly off the top of his head was an E8, and he's like, "Geez, Mom, already?" And I was like,
Yeah,
"Yeah, why not?"
yeah, yeah,
I don't know the difference from one to the other. I am not a veteran. I'm just a military mom. And, that's it. So I'm happy to have whoever wants to come on and have a conversation, have that conversation with me. So,
well, it's
uh,
it's confusing too. Like all the ranks are a little bit different, right?
right,
So like we'll call in the Air Force a master sergeant is an E7, but in the Army it's an E8. So it's and then it's super confusing. So I get it.
right, exactly. So, in looking at this, gosh, you have been, can I list? I mean, I don't know if your biography is like public knowledge
Yeah,
or
it is.
not.
Yeah,
Okay.
yep,
So I'm just going to kind of go through so everybody kind of has an idea. Just this is just where it says finally Chief Shores has deployed and or assisted in support of Operation Rally's Refuge, Operation Enduring Freedom, Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Joint Forge, Operation say that for me.
Coronet Oak.
Thank you. I don't
Yeah,
know why it just didn't, the T did not want to come out of my mouth. and numerous modular airborne firefighting system missions. That's just a very small and I mean very small little portion in his experience, in your experience level. So for those of you watching, by the way, we're up to 11 people in the chat, so much appreciated everybody who's joined. But let's go back. We've got a couple of comments and or questions. So Christine White, she wants to know, where did you go to in Guam?
So I was at Anderson Air Base at Guam both times. Well, 3 times. And the most recent was 2022, so last year. And then 2019 and 17 maybe. Yeah, and so our role there, and the reason I was there in 2022 is Air Mobility Command, which is kind of where I'm assigned until retirement. We have a mission that's over there for a lot of the fighters that are over there. So that the mission, even in Air Mobility Command, is the refueling of those fighters, right, and bombers that are over there. So we basically go over there for long-term TDYs, like their 6-month assignments that are over there, and yeah. So that was the last time. And again, Christine, if you liked Guam, I'm sorry, but it was not a port of call for me. I didn't care for it. Now, some great food, some great places to drink. And I should also mention, to rub this into everybody, my barracks when I was at Guam, because especially the last 2 times, the DV housing was full. So I stayed at the Hilton on the beach.
Oh, geez.
Everybody.
Wow. So, yeah, you are rubbing it in. That's for sure.
Really, really tough life. But I still didn't like it despite that. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And see, and that's why you would definitely get the ribbings. That's exactly why. Yeah.
I'll take it for things like that. Got some great hotel reward points for those 6 months at a time.
Wow. Well, but it's one of those, you just accept it, because, I'd rather be in something like that than, of course, having to share, an entire barracks, with hundreds of people. Yeah. So, see, Angry Sarge, welcome. Thanks again and for joining. I know, yes, you owe me a date still, so we'll be having him join our conversation someday soon. I do have, he did say to thank you for doing a weekday show so he could catch it live instead of the recording. So thanks for being here. And I do have another show next week on the 4th, by the way, for those of you paying attention, 6 p.m. Central Time. I have my guests all lined up for that. And he better darn well show up, because I know there's several people who just want to kind of needle him a little bit. So, right? Yes, it's exciting. Tennessee Goddess, she says she had a cousin who left the Air Force and went into the Navy, and she later came back to the Air Force and retired after 35 years of service. Tennessee Goddess, be sure, tell her thank you so very much for her service and her sacrifices, and I would love to have her on the show. So
I recently had a friend that just retired after 42 years of service, and I used to think I wanted to try to get to 30, and I've got so much respect for those that go that long, and that's bananas.
It is. It absolutely is, and it's. I mean, talk about making it a career.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And
I mean, despite the fact that his cousin had a temporary lapse in judgment by going to the Navy, they found the error of their ways and came back.
That's right. Ivan, welcome. I'm not from this planet. Thank you for showing up. Christine says that she was Navy at Anderson between 2000 and 2003.
That's awesome.
Yeah, let's see. She says we'll plead the fifth about the Hilton.
If you know, you know. We'll just leave it there.
Right, right. Jim says he's got a friend that is stationed out of Fairfield Air Force Base in Washington State, and he does the bomber fuel refill.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
That job is an amazing job, critically undermanned in the Air Force, and you want to talk about going all over the world in jobs like that. It's unbelievable. They can go some amazing places.
yeah, I can only imagine though. I would think it would be kind of stressful um,
Yeah,
in that sense. I mean, responsible not just for your own plane, but another plane that you're going to be connecting to.
right. Yeah, yeah. We're traveling a couple hundred miles an hour in the middle of an open airspace and trying to connect a little tube to an open hole as you're.
Right, exactly. Yeah, to me, it's very impressive what they're able to accomplish. Um, let's see. Uh, Christine White says she's never shared a room outside of boot camp. Well, lucky you, my friend.
And that's why you go Air Force or Navy, right?
That's right. Oh, actually, Tennessee Goddess says it wasn't 35 years, it was 40 years.
Oh, wow.
She went to the Navy to become a nurse and a nurse practitioner. So, more power to her. That's just amazing. So, thank you again. Tell her for her service. So, what made you decide then to go back in as a reservist?
Yeah, I knew that I wanted to continue kind of the career, right? I wanted to have this parallel track where I still felt a overwhelming desire and I felt like a need to still serve in some capacity. And even on the active duty side, coincidentally enough, because my the majority of my active duty time was spent on the honor guard. I didn't deploy active duty wise, and I knew that I had some friends that were on the reserve and National Guard side, and they were deploying left and right. And
Mm-hmm.
I kind of felt like I want to go somewhere. I want to do something, and so I switched over to the reserves, and within 6 months, I went on my first deployment, which was awesome. And then it seemed like it never stopped from there. But yeah, it was really like I still want to serve. I still want to contribute in some capacity. I felt like I had something to give, and I love the lifestyle too, right? And say
Yeah.
what you want about the Guard or Reserves, but it's same, at least on the Air Force side, it's the same exact promotion criteria. You've got to do the same schools, you got to take the same test, all of that stuff, also while juggling your civilian job. And so it was a challenge to me too. And I had a couple opportunities to commission. But like I mentioned before, my civilian career was moving along pretty fast, and I honestly said, I just want to kind of get my hands dirty and work when I go out there instead of like thinking at this,
Yeah.
different level like I was on the civilian side. And so I just chose, hey, I'm going to stay enlisted and I'm going to kind of chart the course and do as much as I can. And you know, I also have this overwhelming passion for the fact that our enlisted corps are just as smart, if not smarter, than our officer corps. And I might catch a lot of flack for that, and I'm willing to have a beer over it and tell you you're
There you
wrong.
go. There you
Um,
go.
but
But it's great that you put that out there, that you're not, you know, I don't know what the term is, that you're not afraid to put that out there. There's a lot of people that it kind of goes against the grain for them personally. And so I think it's great that you're able to just set that out there and let people know that really how much you appreciate what they do.
Well, I've done a lot of research too for the Air Force Institute of Technology, and one of the reasons we have the greatest military in the world is because of our NCO Corps. And you look at any general, you read any reading of Colin Powell, you read any reading of um, any 4-star general, and almost all of them will say they were raised by NCOs, they were taught by NCOs, and the NCO Corps is the reason. And so I've kind of leaned into that wholeheartedly, and it's part of the reason I've taken my military and professional education really to almost the extreme. Um, so yeah, it's something I'm pretty passionate about.
Yeah, and you should be. I mean, and you should be very proud of it. So that's my thought there, because I know I would be,
Yeah,
um, for everything that the Air Force has achieved to this point. The one thing I saw, I think it was a couple days ago. So again, when it comes to the different branches outside of the Marine Corps, I really don't know a whole lot. Air Force, there's planes, right?
yeah,
That's kind
yeah.
of the extent of it. So I was watching with my son a YouTuber, and he actually had done a show about the Mosquito Plane. Are you familiar with that at all?
I'm not. No.
It was a plane that was wooden.
Okay.
And yes, it was made during, well, I guess prior to Pearl Harbor. And you should look it up. It's really interesting. The story of how it became. They were looking for something that was lighter and faster and could carry more. And um, the Air Force is like, we want metal and we want this and we want all of that. And of course, then here we are during World War I or World War II, and there's a metal shortage, right? So
Yeah.
this gentleman took it upon himself to build a plane made out of wood. And of course, then he takes it and he brings it out and says, hey, here, how about this one? And they're like, we don't want that. It's, it doesn't look like anything. I mean, it looked like a plane, but it's all made out of wood, and they want all of the metal and so on and so forth. Well, it's a lot lighter and it was a lot faster, and they ended up using it because it could go, because it was made of wood, it was able to not be seen by radar most often.
Wow.
So they were actually able to hit their targets more often because they could get lower to the ground instead of being so high up. And in fact, what ended up happening is they would use all the other metal planes, right, as kind of almost as a bait, because they'd see them on radar and they'd go to shoot them down.
Oh
So
wow.
they'd send them first and then have um, the enemy on the ground focusing on that metal plane, and here comes the wooden plane low, not even catching radar at all, and able to hit the targets. And they were, I want to say it was like 90%, 90+% accuracy
Wow.
on their targets. And yeah, it was crazy, this story. You know how it is though, when the first one to come up with something new, nobody wants it.
Right.
Right,
Yeah. Right.
until it really proved itself, and they realized that that's part of how they were able to hit their target all the time without casualties to their own planes, because nobody would see them coming, so nobody'd have time to shoot at them.
Holy cow. That's awesome. That's
So
awesome.
yeah, so take a look at it. They called it the Mosquito. um
I wrote it
and
down. I will definitely take a look at that.
yeah, I can't think, the YouTuber's name was the Fat Electrician, I think.
Okay.
I think that's who he is. But really, really interesting. And I love how he actually tells the stories of these, because he's got a very dry sense of humor. So,
Yeah. Awesome.
but so how, okay, so you're actually involved in at least one nonprofit organization that I'm aware of.
Yep.
Are there others that you're involved in?
Nope. I am full bore on that one. All
Okay.
in.
So
Yeah.
why don't you go ahead and share with our viewers how you got, well, what the name of that is, and how you got acquainted with them and got this all going.
Yeah. So it was myself, Seth, who you've had on, and Chad that you'll have on shortly. So we were on a trip with an organization out in Colorado, which was basically geared towards veterans. They did a lot of different things to help veterans out, anything from service dogs to resume writing to off-roading, four-wheeling, all that kind of stuff. And so we were on a trip in Colorado off-roading. Seth and Chad knew each other before. I did not know them, but we got to know each other because we spent a couple weeks in Colorado and I think
Right.
5 days driving through Kansas, or at least that's what it felt like. And so we just kind of hit it off. I mean, we jokingly called ourselves the chief, right? You had an Army chief, which is a warrant officer, a Navy chief, and then an Air Force chief. So we just kind of called ourselves the chiefs and hung out in our little clique together, if you will. And so that organization, the founder of it, or the president at the time, was retiring, and he had said, hey, if you guys want to take the organization over. And so we decided, we want to stop trying to be a lot of different things to a lot of different vets and having a minimal impact, and really just focus in on one thing. And if you've ever read the Jim Collins book, Good to Great, right? We wanted to focus on doing one thing really, really well, and have that be our singular focus. So Mind Overland, it used to be called True Patriot. We kind of renamed it to rebranded it to Mind Overland, kind of the Mind Over Matter moniker, if you will. And it's really the intent of it is to get vets outside, get them out of the four walls of their home, out of the four walls of their mind, around four walls, I guess, and just get them out with like-minded folks who have been through similar experiences. I think Brian even talked about that on one of your other shows. Yes. And just to get people to talk, right? Because sometimes as veterans, we have a hard time talking about the experiences that we've been through because they're so varied, and we think that nobody else has experienced anything like it. But once you actually talk to folks who have been there, kind of done that, it becomes easier to have that conversation. So sometimes we get around the campfire and it's just it's Rib Air Force Day, and I'm here for that all day. And then other times it gets pretty deep, and it gets what people are going through. And we are not therapists. We don't claim to be therapists. We don't want to be therapists. We just want to be a shoulder that a brother or sister can rely on and know that they've got some help. So our singular focus is outdoor adventure, vehicle-based adventure specifically. So off-roading, overlanding type adventures. So we do 6 trips a year, and we are 501c3, completely funded by donations and events and some sales, like T-shirt sales that we do throughout the year. And so last year was our first launch, October of 22. Our goal is to impact 10,000 vets over 10 years, and we are well on track to do that. So we've tried to set this up, the organization up, to where we not just have the 501c3 moniker with the IRS, but that we're really leading into doing everything, and everything goes back to support the vets. So all proceeds that we have go directly back to supporting vets on our trips, and there is no charge for them to go on these trips. We pay for food, gas, the full nine. And then we do our Veterans Day event, which is, Carolee, where we met you, and it was an awesome experience. That was our first kind of foray into that out here in the North Carolina mountains where I live, and so we're looking forward to bringing that back next year in 2024 and making it bigger and better. But it was, year one was a pretty big splash, so we're hoping we can top it.
Yeah, it was great. Because what did you have, 150-ish?
We actually had just right at 250 is what we had. We had 150 vehicles, but about 250 people who were there.
Wow, yeah. That's crazy huge. And it was wonderful too, because you guys had brought in some vendors that were, some food vendors, coffee vendor, ice cream, all sorts of stuff, and that was wonderful. I know that I contacted you about my guest from my last show, who is a musician. Were you able to find out anything on that?
I have not yet. Like you said in the very beginning, I took a couple days or a couple weeks off, and I have just been laser focused on the family. So I've got that on the to do list for next week.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, if not this coming year, maybe in a future time. But um, just know, I mean, a great guy. I think he would just really fit right in. Obviously, he's a veteran as well. So,
Well, he's an Air Force guy. That's the most important thing. So
right, you'll have somebody who's got your back. So.
Yeah, right. Yeah, need more of those.
Now I hear tell you're going to be having your first Space Force veteran coming on or coming out.
We are. As a matter of fact, our trips this year. So we do limit the number of folks that we can have on trips, right? Just so we can have a more personal experience. And so our events. I was looking at the numbers today and actually chatting with Chad and Seth both. We're at like 85% full for all of our events in 2024.
Wow.
So it's fantastic. It's a good problem
I
to have.
am so happy for you guys. I know the last I'd heard, I think when I had Brian on, it was you guys were about at 75%. So
Yep. Yep.
that's huge. That's huge.
We're pushing it, and it's going really, really well. I think the challenge now will be, hey, we got one in 2025. You want to come to 2025? So just get people to hang on. Oh, Killian, awesome! You're coming in May. Which one? Do you remember which? Is that the Pisgah 500 or is that the Northeast BDR? That might be. I can't remember which one.
He'll put it in the comments here. I know he just got new tires on his pickup. So,
nice.
And you'll have to forgive him. He does not have a Jeep, nor does he have a Toyota.
What's he got?
It's a Dodge.
Oh, that's okay. Chad will be Chad's friend. Chad's a Dodge guy.
Well, he hasn't booked it. Apparently, he hasn't booked gone on and reserved it yet. So maybe not if the May trip is already full. But I don't know that it is. So you should go out and take a look. Because the thing about it too, Killian, is if you go ahead and reserve your spot right now, you can always change it later if as you get closer, if something changes in your situation. So go out there and do it. It's not like they're going to ask you to put a bunch of money up front and such. So that's not what this is about, if I'm correct in saying so.
You are, yeah. We ask that people put a $50 deposit down just to make sure they're kind of secure in their spot. But then if it turns out, Killian, that you can't come for some reason, you can just either give you $50 back, or we'll move it to another trip.
Oh, so it's a $50 deposit.
Yeah, we do basically the deposit because originally we were having a ton of people sign up. We're buying all the food, and then nobody shows up. So we feel like you got a little skin in the game. But then at the end of the trip, if somebody wants the $50 back and can't afford it, we'll give them the $50 back.
Okay, not that bad at all, I would say. I think I actually did see something about the $50, but I wasn't quite sure what it was.
Yeah.
So I have to say, just it was just by chance that I happened to see Mind Overland advertising their Veterans Day weekend trip. And it just something told me message and see if I can just do a little thing about it. And here we are now. I'm really super happy that we were able to go. Chad was great when I got this message from him, and he's like, well, yeah, I'll come in. And I'm like, well, we're not veterans. And he's like, oh, that's okay. It's open to supporters and stuff too. Yeah. And I was like, well, okay, but we don't have a tent. We don't have a camper. And I've got a tent. That's kind of what we do.
Yep. And that is absolutely. So if we have vets, and we do, we've got one, we're doing a trip in January. We've got some that are just riding. They don't have vehicles, and we're bringing the tent for them. It's literally just show up, and we'll take care of everything else. So we try to make it as turnkey as we can for folks, and even if they have a rig. So I know I looked, Killian, we've got 3 spots left on the May trip, which is a Kentucky Adventure Tour, which is a great trip. Actually, that's a really good trip. So 3 spots left on that one. Act now before time.
Yes, that's right. That's right. If I were you, Killian, I'd get right on that. Message me after the show, and we'll get that taken care of. Because I do want him to experience that. We did not go on any of the trail rides while we were there Veterans Day weekend. My back was giving me grief, and but we, the where we were at for that particular trip was absolutely gorgeous. The mountains of North Carolina, and you could walk to the river, which we did, and met some wonderful people. You guys, all of you together, just wonderful individuals, and I can't thank you enough for your service, your sacrifice, and what you're doing, every day for our veterans as well. So, if somebody wants to donate something, say a tent or money, something of that nature, would they just go to mindoverland.org
Yeah.
and reach out?
Yep. So on the website, there should be a tab, and it's funny. I just saw Keegan sign up. It just came through on my phone. So, man, your mom speaks and you jump. I like it, man. You're gonna
I'm
fit
telling
in. Yeah.
he's wonderful. I've got
Yeah.
great kids.
Yeah, it's
Chad
awesome.
says he's sitting outside of that mountain right now.
So
Oh,
I'm going to answer your question, and I'm going to say that. So yes, they can just go to the website. There should be a donate tab on there, which will link you to be able to donate, I think, through PayPal or something like that. If you want to donate any items that we can either use for vets or use to sell to, help offset the cost for these vets, because obviously it costs a lot more than $50 to go on these trips.
right.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
price of gas is in
oh
and of
yeah,
itself
yeah, yeah,
is going to
yeah.
be huge.
It is. So yeah, you can donate pretty easily. We've tried to just set it up as quick as can be. Or if you've got other ways, we've tried to set it up. We're even trying to set it up now where we have multiple avenues that you can donate through. Like I know Chad is doing some work on getting us listed with the combined federal campaign so that folks can donate through that as well.
Wow.
So yeah, so
Now
we're
that's an organization I can get behind
yeah.
and donate to, truly.
Yep. Yep. So we're still trying to get all of that worked out, and we've got it worked out. I mean, last year, so there's an organization out there that kind of rates nonprofits, and we got the platinum seal of transparency, which just basically means we have to open up our books to them, right, and show them that literally everything we claim that we're saying actually happens, right. And so
Right.
0%, $0 go back to paying me, Chad, or Seth. It all literally goes right back into to supporting the community. But Chad mentioned he's on the side of that mountain. So if you go to the website, or if you've ever seen our logo, it's a picture of Short Off Mountain, and that is where Chad, Seth, and I came up with the idea of doing this. And Carol, so where you were at was probably 3 miles away from where the idea was birthed.
Oh, wow.
Of Mind Overland. So next time, even if your back is not doing well, we can get you to see that mountain with maybe a quarter of a mile of off-roading just to be able to see that view. And it's unbelievable. And I'm biased because I live right here, right outside of that. So I love this area, and it's where we plan on spending the rest of it. So
nice. That's wonderful. Killian says, it's more like Mom speaks. I ask the wife, then I jump.
Fair enough. Fair enough. That is also very true.
Yeah, and Killian's got a diesel, so do you guys have? I have not looked. Do you have like a PayPal or Venmo, something like that, that's set up for any of those who want to donate that way?
Yep. So I think it's through. I think it's through the donate. There's a donate tab and a sponsor tab. I think it's the donate tab will take you to PayPal, which will link directly back to us. Yeah. And then if you want to do it through we've had some people that want to write an old school check, and that's completely fine as well. You can just go to the contact us piece, and we can send you the PO box to send that to, or get it to us securely, however you want to do that. Yep.
Right. Excellent. Well, I'm going to go ahead and put it out to the chats. If you guys have any questions for Chief Master Sergeant Jonathan Shores Jr., feel free to put them out there now. I'm assuming you've got a founders meeting that you need. Oh, wait, no, it's not Sunday.
It's not Sunday. Yeah.
Woo-hoo. I knew there was a reason we scheduled this for when we did. So yeah, we have all night.
That's right. We do. We got it.
I love it. I love it. But still, if you guys have some questions for him, feel free to put them out there. Any questions regarding his military career or mind overland, put those out there. I can tell you, just from my short experience with it, you're going to meet some wonderful people, absolutely wonderful people all the way around. It's great to be able to sit around the fireplace and hear the different, or the bonfire, hear the different stories, and just really get to know those people. I think I told you just prior to the show, Jonathan, about walking into a store. I did that. I think one of my first little shorts that I did, I had gone to Toyota just to have the oil change and do the tire rotate. And I was just shy of 100,000 miles. So they talked me into go ahead, do the transmission flush. And so it was going to take a little bit of time. So I'm just hanging out there, and I was at the receptionist desk, and a gentleman came over, and I was wearing my Proud Marine Mom t-shirt.
Yeah.
So he saw my shirt, and of course he stopped, and he's a salesperson, and he's like, "How are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm doing great, thank you." And he's like, "Everybody helping you?" He's like, "Everything's going great, just waiting for my car." And he's like, "So you've got a son in the Marine Corps?" And I said, "Well, I've got two." And then he proceeded to tell me that he was a Marine, or is a Marine, as they say, but retired. And then pretty soon it was the receptionist is talking about how her dad is a veteran. And then I had stepped outside, and a gentleman who was out there, we got on a conversation, and his brother is a veteran, and his dad, it was just amazing. And at the Toyota here in Murfreesboro, there is quite a few veterans, and you wouldn't know it, right? And that's kind of the thing that I like to put out there, is the fact that just because somebody's not walking around with I'm a veteran hat for whatever branch, or a t-shirt or a jacket or whatever the case may be, does not mean that they're not a veteran. And you just don't know that. Not everybody wants to advertise. They don't necessarily want that kind of recognition. But in the same sense, it just goes to show that, we need to be kind to everybody that we meet, because we don't know what the stories are. And that's part of this show, for those who want to get their story out, want to have the conversation about, the resources, which leads me into my next thing. So you're looking at getting out in August of 24, which is really going to fly by for you. Have they started, as far as the Air Force, with any kind of classes for you on the transitioning back to civilian life? Have they gone over any of those yet?
Yeah, the courses are out there for you to take if you want them, right? I mean, there's programs that can, going through the Transition Assistance Program, TAP, where you can engage in a lot of that stuff. So yeah, and I think every branch is really, really good about that for the most part, right? Especially on the retirement. Maybe I can't speak for if you're just in your one contract, first contract. But yeah, it's been great, in terms of, hey, here's what you need to do. Here's the next step. And I know at most Air Force bases, they actually have one designated person on base who that's all they do is handle retirements, and they'll walk you through. And, I'd say the only thing that could probably be improved on is a lot of it is here's this long laundry list of all the things you might want to, and it's like, hey, can you just cherry pick these and give me like the 4 I really, really need to work on.
Right.
That's what I'd like to focus on. But yeah, I mean, the support there has been great. And now, now begins my fight with the VA, I guess. Hopefully it's not a fight. Hopefully it's just.
Do you think that this go round, they're going to approve your retirement?
They did. I finally got approved.
It's already approved. Oh, yeah, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, the first 2 times I got denied. And yeah, it was kind of funny. The first one was, hey, we're switching to a new system. Can you give it 6 months and come back? And I'm like, that's kind of, I'm calling BS.
Right.
And then the second one was, they came back and they said, verbatim, we cannot determine your eligibility for retirement. And I'm like, well, 20 years is the mark. I've got 24, so 24 is greater than 20. Therefore, I'm eligible. And then so I said, please, I wrote back and I said, please explain to the Air Force Personnel Center. And they literally wrote back a one-word answer and said, denied. And I was like, okay. So I put it back in a third time, and then it went through in like a couple weeks, and they were like,
Wow.
yeah.
I thought
So
Air Force was supposed to have some smart cookies.
yeah, I think they are. I've got my own conspiracy theories as to why they were trying to do that, which I love a good conspiracy theory as the next person. But yeah, we'll just kind of, yeah, so it finally got approved.
So Jim says, thanks again for your service, your continued giving to veterans, and congrats on your upcoming retirement. Well done.
Thank you.
And he also says, let's see. So all those people need to be on here and telling their friends and family and so on and so on. So, which is absolutely correct. We have had, like I said, multiple people from Mind Overland out here on the show. And we're going to have another one actually coming up next week. So let me check the calendar just to make sure. So today being the 27th, the next show, we're not going to have one on New Year's Eve. Obviously, we want people to enjoy their time with their family and friends safely and all that good stuff. But we're going to have one on the 4th. So make sure to mark that on your calendar. That's January 4th at 6 p.m. Central Time. So also, as Tennessee Goddess says, make sure you hit the thumbs up button when the show is over. If everybody could just put a little comment out there, that's going to help a lot with our algorithm. Like it, subscribe it, share it with your friends. Jonathan, same to you. You have any family members that you think would come on and help Gal out? I'd much appreciate it. And then please know I am here. This channel is here for all of you. And so, keep me posted and in the loop, if you would, to of upcoming things that you've got. I'm more than happy to put it out there for you guys. I think what you're doing is such a huge, worthwhile cause. And anything you want to add to all of this?
No, I appreciate the opportunity to kind of come on, share some stories, and share what we're doing. And I appreciate everybody jumping on and all the support and encouragement. And yeah, I'll just say when Chad's on in a couple weeks, he's not going to get it as easy as he gave it to me tonight. So prepare yourself, Chad.
Oh, that sounds like, yeah, that sounds like fighting words, Chad. So we will be prepared. Let's see. Oh, yes. Jason, my husband, says, don't forget about me. So yes, not just the channel, although he is part of this channel and part of my journey with this channel as far as that goes. But yes, both of us were there. Both of us enjoyed immensely meeting all of you, getting to know everybody out there. So I don't want to take that away from Jason. And Killian says to keep that tinfoil hat on. So
live long and prosper, wherever that's at.
Yeah. He's going to fit right in with the rest of you while he's there. So super excited for that. And I don't see any other questions out there. Keep in touch too, if you would, Jonathan, as you get closer to that retirement, or once you have fully been released from the Air Force, of the resources that you were provided and took advantage of or didn't take advantage of, so that I can get the word out and put it out there. Obviously, the VA, that's known to every veteran, but sometimes those others are not necessarily known. And so as you come across any of them, feel free to share them with me. I'll get a little blurb put out there for you and for those other resources as well. So.
Awesome. I will. I sure will.
Well, everybody, Jonathan, if you want to hang tight, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. And I'm not seeing any additional comments. Be sure, as Tennessee Goddess says, hit the thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe, share, and then at the end of this, please, 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 everybody, if you would go ahead and put a comment out there for me too. So let's go ahead and get some music going as we get this ending here. Oh, he's got some good music.
That is good. I like that.
Right? Not bad, huh? I like some rock.
Did you do this? Did you performing?
It did not me. It's not me. I'm a singer. I'm not a guitarist. Jason says, thank you, brother. Have a good night. Thank you again. Tennessee Goddess, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
So everybody, y'all, have a great night. Please enjoy and be safe. Drink responsibly for your New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. And we will see you again here on the 4th, 6 p.m. Central Time. All right.